It's a bit of a blessing and a curse. It's wonderful to be in a room with people who are genuinely excited about technology and where it's going. And, I think that everyone having access to these kind of tools has removed some of the mystery around AI, which was always a bit of a barrier to adoption in the past. It always felt very inaccessible, a bit like a black box, what's actually going on here? How is it going to affect me? And the fact now that these tools are so readily accessible, everyone can play with them in the day-to-day lives and see the benefits in their day-to-day lives is making that conversation a lot easier and a lot more open, which I only think could be a good thing. The curse is, yes, you can use this personally, but to use it at scale across global organizations with guardrailing, making sure you're guarding against things like bias, that's a huge conversation, that's a huge development effort. And sometimes it's quite hard to kind of quantify that and get that seen when it's just so easy to fire up on your laptop and have a play around.
Alejandro, Jenny, welcome to the show. How are you both?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. That's the moment where you both go, who says hello first? After all the time we've been doing virtual, no one solved that yet. When you say hi to everyone on a call, everyone's like, do I say something? Do I go first? Before we jump in, because we've got so many great things to talk about, could you both just give everyone a little bit of a background about your journey to where we are now and your roles, and then we'll jump in. Jenny, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So I joined Oracle 2 years ago as their VP of Data Science, and I'm now their VP of AI Innovation. So that's been a really exciting journey, and that's all due to the advent of generative AI kind of coming our way and working out where the kind of touch points are in user journeys, where we can embed it, where we want that to go. And how I got into AI was I started an artificial intelligence company in 2012.
Wow.
So relatively early in the kind of AI commercialization story, I guess. So I ran a computer vision company for 12 years, working with the fashion and legal industries. And yeah, that was my journey to get to Oracle today.
Cool. No pressure, right? In this day and age, being VP of AI Innovation.
Yeah, it's a title.
that's a title, right? Yeah, people I bet everyone's like, everyone wants to have a chat with you.
I'm definitely more interesting than when I was a VP of Data Science. That's fair.
An upgrade there. You're like, I'm sure your LinkedIn requests have gone up dramatically. Alejandro, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Alejandro Modarelli. I'm a partner at KPMG. I work on the people consulting team. So what we do is everything from strategy to HR implementation, so technology. My journey, started. I'm from Argentina, and I started at Santander Bank. I implemented for them a global HR system, and then from there, that took me to travel all around the world running 8 different HR transformation projects across Germany, Spain, the US, and now here in the UK for the last 10 years.
Yeah. You forgot to mention the most important thing is that we're fellow skateboarders. I feel like that was
awesome.
So that was something we discovered on our last call, right? That we both have a passion for skateboarding, and you one-upped me and said you have a skateboard ramp in the house. So I was like, okay.
A skateboard ramp. And we are ready, to use it, right? Or we can go to Skaterham.
I'm with you. We're going to do an episode, everyone listening, where we skateboard on the skate ramp and we do an interview. I promise. I'm going to get practicing to make
Let's do that.
Yeah. Let's hopefully we don't injure ourselves on camera. Although it'd be good content for the show as well.
Health and safety.
Health and safety. Yeah. I'm really excited for this conversation, and one of the cool things is that both of you in your roles, you're interacting with leaders and organizations from different industries, backgrounds, different stages of their journey. So I wanted to start off by talking about what are you seeing is sort of the level of maturity of organizations adopting AI, and we can use that as a good starting point to jump in. Jenny, I'd love to jump over to you for this.
Yeah, sure. It's a really interesting time at the moment because I'd say the interest in AI has never been higher, at least in my opinion. And I think the reason for that is that generative AI has kind of hit the market in such a form that everyone can interact with it and everyone can talk with it. So it's this very kind of human way of interacting with artificial intelligence we've never seen before. And that means that people's adoption cycles have accelerated hugely. So this is a market more evolved than I've ever seen before. It's an interesting one in the sense that because it's easy to interact with the systems, we've got people trying to build systems that haven't done that in the past. And there's been some research into that around, how successful are people going to be in building things? So apparently 75% of people who are going to try and build AI agents are going to fail. With my previous startup founder hat on, that feels very low to me. I'm used to 95% failure. But when you kind of look behind the scenes, you're like, okay, that feels about right, because not all these companies have data science expertise, software engineering expertise, even legislation compliance with the EU AI Act, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the appetite's really, really high. People are looking at building it themselves. It's easy to get 80% of the way there with off-the-shelf tools. And where we're focused is really kind of helping people reach that extra 20% through, OCI, or actually by taking on all of that journey for them through embedded AI and just getting them the tools out of the box.
Love that. Alejandro?
Yeah, what we see in the market, is that we have different levels of maturities within the different organizations. About 2/3 of the companies have done almost nothing, and they are now having fear about the implementation of AI, and they are looking at what would be the governance and what would be the frameworks and the regulations before taking any action. Then in the middle, there is a group of around 20% of organizations that have some limited experience using AI. So they have bought licenses and they are starting to deploy it, but they don't really know how to do it. Probably aligned to what Jen says, you need a multidisciplinary team in order to do it. And then finally, there is a leading age and group, about 10% of the companies that have developed a strategic approach to AI, and they're starting to deploy it more broadly across the organization, right? So if we think about the first group, what they need to do is educate the employees and looking at how to develop this governance framework. For the second group that started to experiment, I think probably what they need to look is to adopt an agile test and learn approach and start to capturing lessons learned and deploying into new areas of their companies. And then for those organizations that are really mature, I think it's mainly about looking now at what was the impact of their investment and determine what the focus of the next wave of AI deployments would be within their business, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I see.
It's super interesting. And your point, Jenny, about people already having a playground to play around with the tools. We didn't have that in the past.
Definitely not.
Right. So like the fact that everyone can have access to OpenAI or Gemini or, there's new ones popping up every day now, whether you're using it as an organization or not, your employees are. they're already using it as well, and I think that's maybe some companies are in denial about that as well. But it's the first time I could think of a significant technology innovation where the general public have access to that. How does that shift the way we think about how we adopt this in a company when we already know that our employees are playing around with these tools?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. It's a bit of a blessing and a curse. So I'd say on the plus side, it's wonderful to be in a room with people who are genuinely excited about technology and where it's going. And, I think that everyone having access to these kind of tools has removed some of the mystery around AI, which was always a bit of a barrier to adoption in the past. It always felt very inaccessible, a bit like a black box, what's actually going on here? How is it going to affect me? And the fact now that these tools are so readily accessible, everyone can play with them in the day-to-day lives and see the benefits in their day-to-day lives is making that conversation a lot easier and a lot more open, which I only think could be a good thing. The curse is this kind of the gap between using AI in your personal life and then enterprise AI and the guardrails that you need for enterprise AI is pretty broad, and that's not particularly well understood at the moment. So I'd say that's probably the downside of the accessibility at the moment is, yes, you can use this personally, but to use it at scale across global organizations with guardrailing, making sure you're guarding against things like bias, that's a huge conversation. That's a huge development effort. And sometimes it's quite hard to kind of quantify that and get that seen when it's just so easy to fire up on your laptop and have a play around.
Jump in, Alejandro. Don't wait for me.
Yeah,
I can see your brain. I can see your brain going.
No, I can only agree with Jenny. It's a very yeah, it's not something, that is easy to deploy enterprise-wide. Of course, I know of organizations that are really giving the tools to the employees to experiment, right? But that is, yeah, within the governance, how those tools, can be, limited to a certain team, and then expanded it more broadly to more, yeah, wider set of employees to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But those companies are the exception, not really the the norm, right? The
Yeah.
norm is everybody's much more worried about the regulation and being very careful in how they deploy these tools.
Yeah, and I feel like that's now, like your point earlier, companies are starting to set up those AI ethics councils, starting to create more decision-making frameworks about how they do this and being more thoughtful for the points that you made, Jenny, as well. But that's such a new, a new, there is no case studies out there for this. It's kind of unexplored territory in many cases. Who are the decision makers that even need to be in the room? Is a question that I hear from HR leaders as well to even make that happen. Jenny, given the fact you've done this as a startup founder now at Oracle, what advice would you give to HR leaders listening of like where to start? Because that's kind of one of the biggest challenges for them.
Yeah, I'd say this sounds like very strange advice for work, but I'd say start at home and just use these tools as much as you possibly can and really get familiar with these tools. And the reason I say start at home is that if you're able to experiment with AI in bits of your life that are incredibly low risk, so we talked about, enterprise, start on something small, but start on something that you know incredibly well, and that will get you familiar with how you should write prompts, how you should be interacting with these systems, how you can get the most out of them, and spotting hallucinations. So effectively, when the model goes wrong and it goes off piste, you can catch it if it's your area of expertise. So, Chris and Alejandro, you could do a Gen AI for skateboarding, and you would know if it was right or wrong straight away. So yeah, I'd say when it comes to kind of knowledge and upskilling, start at home, really kind of hone in on how to use these tools properly. And then I'd say bringing that into the workplace, I would start relatively small and identify like where are the pain points in either your jobs or your team's job where you think that AI could have real value and where your team will be really excited to embrace it. So what are the really repetitive tasks that your team are doing again and again that is going an absolute time sink that no one really gets any joy from? That's always a really great place to start innovating, because it instantly kind of wins the hearts and minds of your team. They really want AI to help them out there. And you can easily measure benefits and uplift and ROI and all of those things if you're looking at quite a constrained task that you know is a bit of a time sink at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that we see it, yeah, is exactly, a three-step approach. You first as HR or as a business, you can identify what are the pockets of opportunities that you have within your business to implement some AI use case, right? And then our recommendation is then, you give these tools to a limited set of employees that they will start using it and then validating that this works for them. Also rewrite, what their job role description would be, in terms of I'm not doing these tasks, but now I'm going to start doing these value added tasks that I am not doing, have not been doing before. Then expand within that part of the organization, that specific use case, rewrite, what the workforce would look like in the future for that area and restart again, right? And move into another area. That's what we see. It's been successful for different companies in order to deploying AI solutions.
Yeah. It's so important because the challenge, and even me personally, is just we're being inundated with new technologies, new shiny objects every day. And it's easy to get caught up and start chasing different things, right? Especially in HR, every single part of HR is being disrupted, every single layer. And now, and there's a company out there saying, "Hey, we're going to solve all of your problems with AI." But to your point, starting with what are the problem we're solving, and focus on those specific challenges to the business, and just focus there, and then go through a small user group, validate there is, way more valuable, even if it's a small quick win. It could be an increase in productivity in a specific area. That is the focus, as opposed to otherwise you're just going to get lost in everything going on as well.
Yeah, it's really true. I'd say, Chris, as well, when you're looking at experimenting, if you run one experiment and it goes well, look at innovating, in a kind of linear way as well and building upon that progress. And the reason that I say that is we've got a tool called Time to Hire, and it basically reduces the time between finding a right candidate and hiring them by 10%. But then we realized we ran a kind of study with some customers. And if you actually change some AI experience, so I think it was time to hire and job descriptions automation, and that reduced the time to hire by 20%. You're like, okay. So
Ah,
this is where I'm getting excited by agents as well, is that if you actually begin to change some of these technologies, you see a win in one section, then you're like, right, what's the automatic extension of that? Then actually you're compounding these benefits
mm,
rather than trying to look in kind of hiring and then over here and over here. If you actually take a natural progression, you can see the benefit of chaining these experiences. Um, a bit like if you were to introduce a team, right, of people, it's how would you organize them? It's kind of good to have that level of strategy when it comes to testing out AI.
yeah. Talk a bit more about. I think a lot of people have heard the word agent.
Yeah.
It's the new buzzword. What does that mean? Just kind of break that down for people listening. The types of agents. What are they? What is that? Just
Yeah,
yeah.
that's completely fair. I think it's going to be the word of 2025. I'm calling it now in January. But essentially, agents or agentic workflows, they're essentially AI workers that will go and do tasks for you. And it's taking it one step before generative AI as we've seen it yet. So, generative AI, where it started, was all around kind of generation and creation of content, hence the name. So, things like summarizing tasks, I don't know, writing cover letters for CV, that kind of content generation. And now agentic workflows are essentially chaining these workers together so that they can create content, but then they can also use tools and they can take actions for you. We're seeing early agents basically go away, suggest actions, which I think is super powerful. So it's basically having an intern go away for you and create a kind of menu of options for you to pick from and take the right actions from there. But I think where agents are going to go is that we'll be able to automate whole work streams and people are going to be able to take actions on your behalf. You can have reasoning agents where they can talk to each other and work out if an answer is good or not. So yeah, it's going to be essentially chaining these generative AI workflows together into action-taking agents.
Wow, it's hard to get your head around, honestly. And we're really just at the beginning. That's the interesting part of this. Alejandro, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it cannot be better explained. I only wanted to add that.
Yeah,
I only wanted to add that, like she said, now it's an intern, but somebody said, but by year end, they would be PhDs. So
yeah,
that's how fast these agents will be changing our way of working.
yeah. I'm already seeing it. We've created in Atlas our bi-directional agents as well that are now conferring. So when you ask a question, it kind of goes through the different agents, and then it kind of chooses which agent can best then take on that task. And that just blows my mind that we have the capability to do that, and it's all doing it within seconds, right? And something that would take hours, weeks, months in the past to achieve that we're doing now as well. So what is the role of HR in all of this? So when we talk about AI transformation and the journey that we're on, what do you see the main role of HR? What role is HR playing in this AI transformation?
Okay, should I pick that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think HR will have two typical roles in this transformation journey. One is around guiding the wide workforce transformation of their organization. So HR should look at the workforce plan, so reskill and upskill employees, look at new roles and reshape how that talent will look in the future so that they can really plan where they want to get in 2 or 3 years' time. So that means working really closely with the business leaders, identifying what are those AI opportunities in their own space and determine what those future roles would be and what are the skills that they will need. And then also the role of HR in this area of workforce transformation would be the change agent. So they will need to be in the middle, right? And I think, related to what Jen said about learning step by step, the other role that HR will have is about transforming themselves, right? So they also need to look at how they will professionalize the HR functions through the use of AI, and how can they leverage, these agents to take the most basic tasks and really look at doing the most value-added tasks, for HR, right? So, yeah, basically fulfilling those two critical roles are the two things that HR role is in 2025, let's say. Yeah.
Do you think that there's going to be these? I can almost imagine like a new role in HR of someone in the team who sort of manages agents.
That's an interesting concept.
I'm just trying to think right now because that hasn't made any sense at all. But I'm just thinking like, because who's going to be managing these different agents? I was speaking to a CHRO yesterday. I can't mention their name because I might get in trouble. But they were saying to me, Chris, I've got right now across my HR tech stack, I can turn on 7 agents. Every vendor that I have across all these areas are saying, use my agent right now. So now you're going to have an agent for all these different parts of the of the business. Who's managing that?
I mean, that's a great question, Chris. I think there will have to be a lot of kind of testing done up front around, like any software buying process, right? Of competitive analysis, what's working well, what's not, whether it should be turned on. So I think that will still probably be a really essential part of, I'm guessing, kind of procurement cycles or IT. I think the role of HR in all of this is fascinating with regards to working out how people's roles changed and how the kind of forms of those roles changed around these agents that are being introduced. So as an example, I used to be VP of data science. And when we were hiring data scientists, we had to kind of amend that job description incredibly quickly from a typical skill set to actually talking about prompt engineering and LLM evaluation and LLM as a judge. And that was changing like lightning speed. And I think for HR to keep on top of those role changes, and I like to think AI is going to bring more humanity into our roles as it automates the things we don't enjoy doing. And, it increases our ability to do a job in a more human way. I think that adapting those job roles around the agents that are coming in is going to be, a full-time job. Hopefully managing the agents themselves should be simple. If you've got a good one going, then they should be relatively self-managing.
It's going to be interesting now that we're going to have prompt engineers in the HR team. That's like, if you had told me that 20 years ago, obviously I wouldn't even know what prompt engine meant 20 years ago. Actually, no one even what does that even mean? But it's incredible to think now that that's going to be a key skill for everyone, not just HR, for everyone, but especially in HR, where you want to make sure that you have AI, but that is human-centric still. So there still needs to be a human in the loop somewhere. Otherwise, we're going to get in trouble.
I think we need to democratize prompt engineering as well. It's, speaking as a data scientist and software engineer, it's so tempting just to be like, I want this to be the thing that only I can do and I'm an expert in. But it's why it's so important that we just get everyone kind of learning about how it's actually working, what's happening under the hood, how you can get the most out of these systems, and basically teach people to talk to AI in the way that, we learn how the correct way to communicate with our peers at work. We've got to build AI into those systems as well.
Yeah. I was making a joke to my wife the other day saying, I feel like in the future in schools, when my daughter's 6, when she grows up, that will be a class. So you have English, math, science, prompt engineering. Like I do think that will be just as important as a new type of literacy that you have to know, if that makes sense. The same way we're seeing, what's interesting because we're seeing coding come into the schools, but now that's being disrupted by AI because you can do that there as well. I was listening to Mark Zuckerberg on a podcast the other day saying by the end of the year that he believes that the agents will be able to do 80% of the work of his engineering team. Wow. And I was like, whoa, like that is pretty crazy to think about as well. So what are you kind of hearing from customers? Are you seeing customers already make investment in their HR teams to upskill them to ensure that they're prepared, or you feel like they're really behind on that?
I think they're starting to experiment. Okay, I'm going back to the question that you asked before. I think what we see today is probably not one master of all agents, but really different owners, right? And that has to do with what you explained before about I have 7 agents. So it's the fragmentation of the HRIT landscape where they will have someone using a recruitment solution that has its own agents, its own data, and then you will have someone that is being now trained in the HR department in order to develop that agent or AI solution that is specific to that product. And then another one for the next product, and as we know, in average, companies have 5 different IT products to run HR. So I think there would be multiple HR agents, and I think what we see now is, people are starting to get trained on all these different capabilities in order to start using them and deploying.
When you're chatting with clients, what's sort of the best practice approach that your guide as much as you can, I suppose, to them in terms of workforce transformation? What's the approach that you take? I'm sure you have a very clear defined approach.
Oh, yeah, well, okay. Yeah, we do have a very clearly defined approach, that is in line with what I explained before. What we typically do is, okay, we use AI to do what I'm going to explain right now. So what we typically do is look at the whole organization. So we look at it end to end. We load into an AI tool all their job descriptions, their skills, the tasks, and then using AI and looking at the AI capabilities, such as translation or summarizing information, analysis of data, et cetera, we identify what are those tasks that could be augmented by AI, right? With that, we find what are the departments that can really benefit more, and specifically what are the roles. And from there, it's very easy to say, okay, these are the use cases, right? So a good example, we ran for one of the NHS trusts, one of these exercises, and surprisingly, a role that you would never think, the midwife, could be heavily affected by AI.
Really?
So because the midwife needs to summarize information for each one of the parents, when they go out, they also need to schedule things, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunity within the midwife population to automate so that they can spend more time with their patients, right? So these are the surprising findings that you will find, if you do an end-to-end analysis of your organization. And then what we recommend is after you've done that, you identify the use cases and you start deploying them organically through the organization. And finally, when you see what the impact is, rethink what your workforce would look like, right? And start again, right?
Yeah. Fascinating example that you just shared there. And I remember when my wife was pregnant and we had the midwife meetings, and I remember asking, because she was writing down all of the notes, and I was like, why don't you just write it in the computer? And she's like, no, we were required to do both. And I remember being like, saying that must take you so much time, like you have to do it twice, like because they have the folders. If anyone who's having a kid, they give you like this big folder with all of your information about your child. I think it's red, and then they also have to enter all of that information manually after into the computer as well. So I can imagine the time savings on that. And to your point, in order for us to be more human, you're gonna have much better interaction with the parents if you had an AI note taker. Exactly. For example, so you could be truly present in the room as well. And I'm sure it would also decrease errors because there's human error in remembering what that person's told you, right? As well. Wow, what an interesting, and that's NHS is the largest employer in the UK as well. So you can imagine the impact. What a cool example. Yeah. Jenny, any examples that come to mind for you?
No, I was just thinking, Chris, about the comment that you made then about performing better. And the way I always think about AI and the way I'd love it to evolve is that we all know our strengths and weaknesses. And an example that springs to mind for me is I have a terrible short-term memory, which I'm not sure is something I should be proudly sharing.
I'm with you. By the way, I'm with you on that. All right.
So bad. Yeah. Tiniest bit of stress and my memory is just completely shot and I become a sieve. So something that I've been using recently is using AI to help with my kind of employee summaries at the end of the year when I'm doing performance reviews. Because my fear as a manager is that I'm going to judge
Mm,
someone based on the last week, 2 weeks, month, what's been happening recently. But obviously, reviews are meant to go back a year. So I've been consciously kind of taking notes just as and when things happen around, training courses they asked me to do, or, a gap I noticed in a meeting, something they did really well. And then actually, I can feed all of that into AI and it gives me a lovely summary of how I felt about that employee over 12 months rather than the last week or two. So that's personally where I found it the most useful, is to,
super interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I can actually increase my memory rather than just relying on AI in the future.
Yeah. I think with those things, I'm the same, by the way. My team's like, they hate me for it. They're like, Chris, we said this to you. My short-term memory is really bad, but I'll remember a name from 10 years ago. It's really weird.
Oh, yeah, it's
So they're
bizarre.
like, this makes no sense whatsoever. But what you're doing there is also is like kind of reducing bias,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because you have that short-term, as you said, it could be like the last few weeks versus the incredible work they maybe did for the first 6 months of the year, right? As well, and you're judging people based on that as
Mm.
well. And no human can remember all of those things.
Yeah,
Doesn't
exactly. And
matter how good your memory.
yeah, it's memory and it's emotions as well. Like you say, with bias, if you're particularly stressed, if you're in a bad
Yeah,
headspace, you don't want that influencing a whole year of reviews. So yeah, I found that really interesting to be using myself.
yeah. I feel like managers could use all the help when they can get when it comes to that as well. And you mentioned earlier about like AI being able to nudge you and make
Mm.
suggestions and kind of pick up those things that you wouldn't. Hey, Chris, you've been on 14 hours of Zoom calls this week. Maybe you should cut that down a little bit because it has the data, right? To be able to do that as well. Or hey, you haven't checked. I've got a tool that I use that kind of reminds me to check in because
Oh,
I have a
interesting.
remote team, and it just now and again, if I haven't checked in with a particular employee, it will give me a little nudge to say,
Yeah,
hey, you haven't checked in with Adam. Maybe you want to schedule a call with Adam. I'm like, yeah, I haven't spoke to Adam in a week. I probably should check in, see how he is. It's like because we're all just so busy. So
yeah,
that's kind of where, and that's a small thing, but it makes a world of difference because that person feels like they're valued. That I've just not just forgot about them because they're working remote. Because there is that bias that I spend more time with the people in the office, and
yeah,
that's a real thing as well. And it's very because they're present right in front of me. So of course I'm going to check in and recognize them more than I recognize people remotely as well. So super interesting. Um, I'd love to learn more about sort of KPMG's point of view on AI architecture.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
going deep now. So, because that, especially if this sort of rapidly evolving landscape, it's something that we need to pay attention to. That many people, honestly, it's kind of above, going over their head. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, I think it's an evolution, from the previous architecture that we had, right? So we had an experience level, right? And then uh, I would say an employee level and then a core HR level, right? That when we log in every morning, that's what I would call the experience level. You will log into maybe your Outlook or maybe your Teams, and interact with the organization, right? Then the second level was, yeah, well, the experience level. That would be probably in HR, multiple different systems, right? So it could be that you have a ServiceNow integrating or an Oracle layer integrating all your systems below, all the transactional systems that will allow you to query, interact, and transaction, and then your transactional systems, right? So those are the three levels. Okay, now what we see is the evolution of that, where the top level, this experience level where you log in every morning will have its own agent that will guide you through what's new in our organization today and how to um, be the agents of agents and guide you through what you need to do today. And then it will go and contact the HR level, right? And the HR level, we have other agents that will also enable to think, oh, it's a performance process this week. You need to be doing this and this and that, and reminding you and telling how the process would run, and then connecting to the transactional system as well. So that's how we see interacting, the different agents interacting going forward.
How about you, Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a kind of technical architecture perspective, Oracle's really interesting. And I say this, I know I'm going to sound really boring when I'm talking about this, I'm well aware. But I think, we're interestingly positioned because we've got hosting via OCI, so Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, where, GPUs, there's a real shortage of them globally at the
Yeah.
moment. So it's great that we've kind of got all of them in the background, the NVIDIA H100s, A100s. But basically, it's like the firepower that you need to be able to run these large language models. They're huge and very complex, so you need that. We've then got the area which is around data and security. And it's worth saying, actually, when it comes to customer data, we don't mix company customer data. We don't reshare it with models to be
Yeah.
trained. Very few companies can actually say that at the moment, that they are keeping customer data as customer data and they're keeping it securely. And then you've got this apps part of the business, which is where I am, where we're looking at those kind of points in user journeys where AI will add value into user experiences. So, can we identify places that we think AI will add the most value? What are we seeing from other customers? Like, where are they using AI the most? So, I think having those kind of three pillars together of the hosting infrastructure, the data and the security side, and then the insights around applications and being able to build them into applications, that makes it a really interesting place to be. So yeah, very much enjoying working on AI within a company that does all three of those things incredibly well.
Yeah. And you need all of those are the essentials just for the foundation to,
Exactly. Yeah.
to make that work. Share some of the use cases, Jenny. What are some of the Gen AI innovations Oracle's focusing on? What are some of the use cases? Share that. It'd be super interesting to understand more.
Yeah, definitely. So, one of them that I really enjoy is we've got a benefits agent that's just launched or it's launching soon, but I'm allowed to talk about it. But that's essentially around using RAG. So, retrieval augmented generation is a kind of functionality within generative AI that lets customers ground the response and the reality of their company, but without sharing that data back to the model provider.
Well
Sorry, I'm
done,
not
by the way, for
out
making that sound
bravely,
so
but
simple. You described that really simply, and I do such a terrible job when I try and explain that to people. So well done.
oh man, I can geek out about this very much. So sorry, everyone who's listening. But essentially, it means that if you went to ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the providers at the moment and you said, are my son's braces covered in my dental plan? It would basically, in a very wordsmithed way, tell you to go and read your dental plan. It will tell you very nicely, but that would be the answer. Whereas RAG and the system we developed at Oracle will let you ingest your company's data. So you'll have that data dental plan. You might have 12 dental plans across the world, and it will work out, okay, you're a UK employee. This is the plan you need. It will do search within that document, and then it will kind of give you that answer. And you can layer those questions one on top of the other. So that kind of benefits analyst is coming soon, which will be really, really cool. Other things we've got going, we've got employee hiring advisors. So this is helping source candidates, looking at the optimal time to run campaigns, wording in campaigns, reducing time to hire. So you've got that kind of hiring piece of the puzzle. And then we've also got scheduling assistance as well. So instead of playing ping pong with people around, when they're free for an interview, and shift schedules is another big problem, you're able to kind of create those optimized workflows using scheduling assistance and tools as well.
Yeah,
So,
I need that one as soon as possible. Yeah,
so do I.
yeah. How does it show up? Is it within one sort of user interface and you switch between agents, or do you not even know the agents are behind it? So you're asking your questions and it obviously then sends that to the right agent. Just out of curiosity, just to give it
Yeah.
to people to give a visual of like what that looks like in a practical sense.
It's a super interesting question as well, Chris, because we had a lot of discussions about how we should present it to people
Mm.
because you want things to be as seamless as possible, but equally you want people to know they're using AI so they can opt in or out of it.
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting one academically, and I can nerd out about that for ages as well. But essentially, it depends on the product. So with Oracle Grow, you'll see lots of these AI features embedded within the user experience anyway.
Okay.
The way that you can spot if we normally say AI assist, and we've got a kind of little wand icon with some stars. And essentially, so for instance, if you're looking at writing a job description using Gen AI, you can you could write a job description in line, or equally you can tap on the AI assist button and that will just automatically populate it. And then it's up for you to check it and press send. So yeah, we try and embed it where we can in the flow so that you don't have to keep breaking your attention. But equally, we try and flag as well that this is AI that's being utilized in the background.
Yeah. And then for the benefits one, which is super interesting because benefits is such a complex,
Yeah.
it's, like that area is right for innovation, and to make that more personalized, because it can be overwhelming for people. I even know friends of mine that didn't even know they had certain benefits in their organization, right? So the ability to be able to ask a question and it knows the context of Chris is in the UK, this is who he is, this is his role, this is his function, and this is what he has. Is that something now that's going to be employee facing, so employees can ask that?
Exactly. And that's where a chat interface is really useful as well. So this kind of, I hate the word chatbots, but
I know, it just ruins it.
Conversational interface is probably way nicer than saying the word chatbot. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I always like to try and take a step back and work out, where it fits in the user flow, and also people have different styles of interacting with technologies. So you might love a chatbot, but I might love just clicking a button and getting it emailed to me or whatever. So yeah, trying to kind of thoughtfully design which products will fit which interface. But for benefits, it's a conversational interface.
Yeah,
I have seen the benefits solution. It really acts like an HR advisor.
Okay.
It takes you to that limit. Things like it would tell you things like, last year you subscribed to these, I don't know, dental provider, but this year we changed. Be aware that the change brings these different benefits.
Nice. So it's
And
also
then,
telling you.
And you also have a kid, and you will need to consider this and this, and it will guide you through the process. Yeah.
So it's even being proactive as opposed to reactive as well, to say, hey, we know you just had a kid. Here's the new benefits you might want to have a look at.
Basically, when you go to the benefits application, in Oracle, it will pop up and will start to guide you through the process of selecting your benefits for the next year and doing those comparisons and guiding you through the changes in your lifestyle, what they think you should be doing, etc.
Wow,
it's beyond what you've seen.
Is it so? Are they still separate then, interfaces? Or are they within one interface of what we're describing? So do I still have to go to the benefit portal to activate the benefits agent? Do I have to then still go to a separate portal to activate the other agent, or is it in one interface? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, the way I've seen the benefits one working is, you go to your benefits enrollment, right? So you will go to the benefits enrollment and say, okay, these are the benefits for this year. And on the right, it will start to give you all this page and say, well, this is how you should select this year, and we'll give you the recommendations.
Yeah, I'll just ask you because I've seen companies roll these out where the different agents are sitting in sort of I don't want to say the word intranet because I hate that word, but a portal, and where you click into different areas of the portal, you have different agents that activate. And I think one of the challenges with that is that it's not all in one simple user experience within one interface, if that makes sense, to then be able to, it can then kind of send the request in the right direction as well. But it's incredible that we even have the opportunity now to give our employees access to that. I'm sure the HR team is very happy. Probably reduced. I love to see the data on the reduced amount of requests and tickets that they're going to be getting as well. So I know it's just launched, so I'd be really excited to see how that evolves.
Yeah, we'll check that next year. I'm interested as well. I'm not sure if we can ever get this data, but to see how many people take up more benefits based on this. So for instance, I was testing the software, found out I could get free glasses. I was like, never knew that. So but it'd be interesting to see if people take up more benefits because of it.
Yeah, and that's the truth, right? Most people don't really know and check those things. Right. And depending on what stage of your life you're at, those things change. Right. You could be, whether it's getting a house, whether it's having a child, maybe you're near retirement. Most people don't go and check back and see kind of what they have. So I love that. I feel like that's a great place to start, and an area really that hasn't had much attention, in my opinion, over the years. What about the, I know you mentioned before the Jenny Innovator program. Could you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we ran a program with a humanitarian organization, and they've got about 10,000 employees. So that was really interesting. And we basically said, like, these are all the innovations that are coming out. Some of these are available now, some of these you're getting an early peek. Which ones would you like to test and deploy? So they prioritized features. They did goal creation for employees. They did feedback automation, summarization of performance reviews. So they were the kind of main three that they went for.
Hmm.
Oh, and about me, writing your about me page within the HR system as well. And we effectively measured with them productivity gains and how much people are interacting with that system. So that was a small kind of study that we did with one organization. But we're rolling that out as well. We've got a team now in Oracle who are looking to work with organizations and work out which features they want to turn on. And because all of this is included within Oracle Fusion subscription. So to use generative AI, it doesn't cost anything more. There's not an additional fee. But we just want to raise awareness of that you can turn on these features and try and make it as easy as possible to get them switched on.
Nice. So if you're listening right now and you're using that, turn it on. So,
Pretty much. That's my message.
or you probably get some people listening right now that didn't even know I had that. As well.
It's like me and my glasses.
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's another part. Most people aren't. So I'm glad that was one reason I was excited to do this episode and share more. Is there anything, Alejandro, any other use cases that you can think of that you've come across or stories that you could share that we haven't spoke about?
Well, I think, another one that I've seen within the Oracle space was the cascading of goals. I think is quite useful, mainly if you really have, a really, let's say, organizational cascade of roles, because it really can identify what of those, company goals are important, and what is the relevance for your role specifically,
Mm.
and what is the percentages that they will apply, etc. So you can imagine that, it's again unbiased, very precise in terms of what the recommendation is about your goals, and also time saving for you writing your goals for that year.
Yeah. Half of the battle is just writing it down and doing the work. As well, so it definitely will help. Listen, I feel like we could do a whole series together on this, so we just sort of the tip of the iceberg. But before I let you both go, what would be your parting advice for HR leaders who are just sort of getting started on this journey? Because as we saw by the data, many are just getting started on the journey. And then we'll say goodbye. We'll start with you, Jenny, first.
So I'd say first up is speak to your HR software provider, see what they've got, see how much it is. For instance, with Oracle Fusion, it is free and you can try it. So I think really kind of sit down with people and work out what's being offered to you now and how you can measure performance and how you can kind of check that ROI. Say the second one personally is just learn as much as you possibly can. So take AI into your personal life, experiment with it, see what resonates for you. Think about where your gaps are, like my memory, and see where it would be the most useful. So just don't be afraid to play around with it. It's the time to experiment, and the more you know, the more useful it's going to be in the future. So yeah, just get stuck in.
Amazing. Thanks, Jenny. Alejandro?
I will adapt, to that. Yeah, it's the technology and what is available is important. Also, look at your organization, look at your workforce, find where you have benefits of implementing these tools, and also help your employees to learn and to change as you deploy these tools. I think that's a complement to Jenny's
Yeah.
view. Yeah.
And I love, if anyone is using Oracle, definitely connect with Jenny and the team, because I love the fact that you're helping companies discover which use cases, because I think that's a challenge for many. It's great that you've launched that team to help organizations focus on which of those use cases where they have opportunities. But appreciate you both coming on the show as well. It's what a time to be alive, honestly. And we're just getting started, right, on the journey. So thank you both for sharing your insights, and I wish you both all the best until we next speak.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah.